Thank you, Gary. Maybe I can talk loud enough that I won't need it. Thank you for allowing me to be here with you tonight, and thank you for being here especially. I love that title, Safe Harbor. I think that this is the right place, the right time, and it's, as the biblical heroine said, a time like this. So together I'm going to ask that we can be the right voice at the right time. So I've been instructed that it's been a long time since I've been in this campaign game, so I'll tell you, I'll try to correct some of my mistakes from earlier this week. My name is Jerry Tillett. Jerry Tillett, Jerry Tillett. I'm told I didn't say that enough. This is not a campaign speech, it's more of a call to action for all of you. And I realize that there are a lot of other questions, and there are another speaker tonight. And Joe told me last time I spoke for him at the show on GOP that I talked too long, so I'm aware of that. So tonight I'm just reminded of the story of a young preacher that was sent to the mountains from the coast, and he wanted to make a good impression, so he planned this great service, and he went out after he prepared, and he went to every little store, every place with a potbelly stove, every farmer plowing in a field. Anywhere he could see one or two people, he would stop and invite them to this great service that he was going to have. And then he went and he prepared. But the night before that great service, a great snow came, covered everything. So the next morning, he was disappointed because only one man came, one farmer came. He didn't know what to do. He prayed a bit. Then the thought came to him to ask the old man. So he did. And the man said, well, I don't know about all that stuff, preacher. I'm a farmer. All I know is if I went to all the trouble to load up my wagon, go out in the field to feed my cows, and one cow came, why, I'd feed her. So thinking he had his answer, he jumped into the pulpit. And he preached, and he preached, and he preached. And about 2 hours later, he went down and asked the farmer what he thought. He said, well, preacher, I told you I didn't know about that. Told you if I loaded up my wagons and went out in the field and only one cow come, I'd feed her. But I wouldn't give her the whole goddamn load. So I'm not going to give you the whole load tonight. I will tell you a little bit about myself, or maybe more than you want to know. I'm a Christian, I'm a conservative. I have been all of my adult life involved in public service and or business. I served in various capacities, trained as a lawyer first, worked as a law enforcement ranger and EMT and rescue before that. I served in capacities as starting the Cancer Relief Group, COA, Board of Trustees, Tourism Board, Dare County Chamber of Commerce, and professionally I served as Senior Resident Superior Court Judge for the 1st Judicial District, the largest in the state, the largest geographically as well, and comprises most of the counties of this new district, the Senate District. Served as judge for about 33 years, held court in 86 of our state's counties, including all 10 regularly that served in this district. In business, of course, I had my own law firm after I left a large firm in Winston-Salem. It grew to a medium-sized law firm before I left and went to work with the Senate many years ago as Chief of Staff and Chief Legal Counsel. My youngest brother and I owned 3 water sports businesses. We owned waterfront property dealing with some of the same issues you deal now. I also live in a subdivision that has docks and same type of issues with which you are confronted now. We had every type of water sports you could use or rent: dolphin tours, kite flying, parachutes, fishing boats, jet skis. We even bought the Kawasaki dealership, run those to have cycles and those type of businesses. Also formed a partnership early on with one of our long-time former Republican commissioners, Richard Johnson, and we would buy a little piece of land and build a house on it, and then keep on doing that until we finally we'd buy bigger pieces of land and divide it up, build houses, and eventually we were able to own or finance some houses for some people. And a lot of young people got their start, some of whom are very prominent people in our community now that way. So the point of all that is I know what it's like to make payroll, especially in the winter, 941 reports, and to deal with a plethora of regulations, complex bureaucracies. My priorities are God, family, country, and community. I'm a lifetime resident of the district. I did work with a large law firm in Winston-Salem, was graduated from Wake Forest 3 times, and my wife, her family's from Gates, and her mother's from Currituck. Both, I have 2 adult children, 2 grandchildren, all of which are home in the district now, so the point of that is I have skin in the game. I believe in law and order, a fair application of the rule of law without favor or delay. I believe in bail and in jail.
Right.
Free enterprise. It's the engine that supports and provides opportunity. I believe in economic prosperity. That's a tide that's going to float all boats. Now, there are certain core values and core principles that will be applicable to all of these 10 counties. But because it's so large and vast, the 10 counties stretching almost to the Virginia line, all the way to Halifax County, all the way as far east you can go. And so there are some unique issues. Today, I've had the opportunity to meet with some of your very informed and tenacious leaders here, understanding that you are in need of some assistance in breaking through a log jam to get a breakwater and maybe some grant money. And I understand there's also an issue with firehouse, and that of course translates to cheaper insurance down the road. But these are the type of issues, the very diverse issues that you find in this district. In Dare County, you're going to have issues with, we're the only state in the nation that has an absolute, inexorable, hard and fast rule about no hardened structures. No other state. And that's something that needs to be changed. Now, we're not talking about using taxpayer money just to improve one piece of individual property, but let the people protect their own property. Right now, there is no way, and that's a legislative fix. Regulatory reform, we've got to get a handle on it. I'm also supportive of quality of life for residents who are already in our area. There's big tourism areas, and there's a big attraction for people to move to areas like here. And we need to further enhance the quality of life for those who are already here. And this includes a lot of issues. Access to health care. There is a big problem in rural North Carolina with access to health care. There's less access to health care in my county than there was when I was growing up. We always had a good doctor, or more than one good doctor. Now it's difficult. A clinic closed this week in Dare County because they couldn't staff it with a doctor. There's issues about mental health, and there's, as we've talked about, not only firehouses and grant money that needs to help with some projects, especially as large and as community oriented. You understand, you teach sailing to young people here, and it's the only fuel place for those making that loop right now as we stand today. Not that it's on the agenda all the time, but immigration reform. Most of you will say that's a U.S. issue, but we know that 8 to 11 million people were not only allowed but encouraged into our country, larger than our capacity or their willingness to assimilate. And there has to be a fix for that. Some of those issues will be state issues. In fact, the first line of response is always at the state level. There have been some 8 or 9 bills that have been introduced regarding immigration in the state legislature, 2 of which have passed. And I'm glad to talk to some of you about those if you have any questions about them.
Jerry, what we'll do is, John came in as well, so we're gonna let John do kind of a quick introduction.
Okay.
Then we're gonna open it up, we just have a chair, and
Okay.
we'll get you. John Spruill as well is running for North Carolina House of Representatives, or delegates. And he's gonna, as he comes on up, we'll talk, let him introduce himself a little bit. If some people weren't aware, we had a number of folks here before this meeting, and they went down to the marina, and they went to look at some of our marina infrastructure issues around wave attenuation and the cost of that, and what we can do with the Coastal Resource Commission and CAMA in terms of kind of pushing some development at our marina so that we can bring in more slips, also do some environmental protection there. So it's been something that's in the works for 15 or 20 years, literally, on trying to get wave attenuation. So we had some very good discussion about that earlier today. That's what Jerry was referencing when he was talking about the marina. In terms of firehouse, some of the things he and I have talked about are getting that road paved on Church Street. There's a 1.2 mile stretch there from the new firehouse to Holiday Island Road. And I don't think very many fire trucks are gonna wanna take that in a gravel road, right? So we're talking about how do we get that in front of the state, in front of DOT to get movement on that. So it is a county road, but we need the endorsement and the support of the county commissioners to help, but there's a lot of stuff that can happen there. So, all right, with that, John Spruill. When I talk to John, I'm like, I feel so short. I feel short anyway, but John, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity to come speak to you all tonight. I really appreciate it. Sorry about my tardiness. I was actually in Morehead City today. I serve on the Coastal County Fisheries Coalition. And Jerry was talking about regulations. Anybody want to guess who is the most regulated state? When you hear about regulations, which state do you think has the most regulations?
California.
California. That's what everybody says, right? North Carolina regulates the fisheries more than any state in the nation. North Carolina.
Why?
We have the most regulations when it comes to commercial fisheries, when it comes to recreational fisheries. You can't even go out here in the sound and catch a fish and keep it most of the time because it's over-regulated. And most of the time, and we found out today, they base all that regulations, you would think, on facts, right? On how much is being caught or some kind of figures or facts. No, they base it off of conjuncture, off of opinion, off of what they see, not necessarily the data, because they don't have that data in hand. So we need to work, the legislature needs to work at cutting red tape, not only for commercial fisheries and recreational fishermen, but also for a multitude of other things. We have too much red tape, and we need to work on cutting that stuff out so that individuals that own their own property, when they want to make an improvement, they don't have to fight and hire a lawyer and get a variance to be able to make improvements on their own property. We need to work on that. It's senseless to me. Folks, my name is John Spruill. I am running for North Carolina House District 1. I'm a county commissioner in Washington County. I saw a need to step up and do something in Washington County, and I stepped up and ran. This is my first term there, and as I sat in the seat as being a county commissioner, I saw an even bigger need. That same need that we see in Washington County is magnified and multiplied across the whole district, across District 1 and across Eastern North Carolina. So whenever I see a need, I can't help but try and step up and fill that need for the citizens of Washington County and for Eastern North Carolina. Like I said, I'm a county commissioner. I'm the fire chief of the Roper Fire Department. I've served 33 years as a volunteer in that department. I served 4 years now as the fire chief there. During my tenure at the fire department, we have brought in grants over $1 million in grant money for new fire trucks, new equipment. We were just awarded a FEMA grant for $121,000 for new equipment for air packs for the firefighters to go in and protect them when they're fighting fire. So it's things like that. It's being proactive that I see that can benefit all of Eastern North Carolina. We need someone that's going to go to Raleigh, that's going to work towards bringing something back to Eastern North Carolina and our counties right here that's going to benefit the citizens of Eastern North Carolina. I'm also, on my day job, I work as a chief estimator for a civil contractor in Eastern North Carolina. So I'm familiar with building things and working hard. We also have a marine division within our company. So we do bulkheads and in fact, I was talking to our marine guy on the way over here, and I said, I think they have some issues or whatever. Tell me about camel permits. Tell me about how you get the minor permit, the general permit, and the major permit, and all that kind of stuff. So I got a crash course on all that on the way over here. So do that. That's how I make my living. I also am an elder in my church, very involved in my church, and I'm Christian, and I'm very proud of that. And we're working hard in our church to reach out to our community. I'm married to my wife, Terry. We live on our family farm that my grandparents bought in the 1940s. They have since passed away. It went to my uncle and my dad, and then we purchased it from them. We raised our 4 kids there, and we've got 4 grandkids, one that's 2 weeks old, and one that is coming in January. So we have 5 grandkids come January. And my wife keeps me busy going to see the grandkids and spoiling them. You can believe that. So, let's see, did I miss anything? Probably so. Folks, my promise to Eastern NC is that we can all have the American dream, that we can live well, that we can work proud, and that we can play freely right here in Eastern North Carolina. And what do I mean by that? Well, when I say live well, that we have lower taxes right in Eastern North Carolina, that we keep on track to be able to maintain that we have safe communities, that our first responders, our EMS, and our law enforcement have the resources and the things that they need, the training that they need to make sure that they are well staffed and we're all safe in Eastern North Carolina. That we have strong schools and our teachers are well paid. If we have well paid teachers, they'll stay here in Eastern North Carolina and they'll be able to support our kids, give them, education is the great equalizer, right? It doesn't matter if you come from a rich family or a poor family, or you're from the coast, or from a little rural town in Eastern North Carolina. If we've got good kids that get a good education, then we're raising the next generation that doesn't have to be supported, that we don't have to support them, that they can support themselves. We also need good, safe, and affordable housing. And I'm not talking about subsidized housing. I'm talking about housing that young families that are starting out can afford. My son Aaron and his wife, he's getting ready to get out of the Marines here in January. And it pulls my heartstrings because he's searching for a job. You know, he's getting ready to get out. He's trying to find a job here in Eastern North Carolina, and they're just not any that pay very well. Okay, and he's looking for some kind of affordable housing. Everything that he's looking at, $350,000, $450,000. That's hard for somebody that's just getting out, that's not going to have a regular paycheck, that's not coming from the government, from serving in the military, to be able to go to the bank and say, hey, I need a $450,000 loan. That's impossible, right? We need to do better in Eastern North Carolina and provide for our kids here in Eastern North Carolina. So that means being able to cut red tape, support folks that, general contractors that can build affordable housing, that young kids, young families can put down some roots somewhere and get established and get started. We also need food security for our seniors and young families that are starting out. We also need, as Jerry said, affordable health care, where we don't have to drive 2 hours to find a good doctor. We don't have to wait 2 months to get on that list to be able to see a specialist, right? Just recently in the House and the Senate, they passed a bill that said that foreign doctors can come here and practice. I see that as an opportunity. It allows them to be able to get through some of that red tape, to be able to get here so that we can have good doctors in Eastern North Carolina. But we need to take that a step up further. We've got nurse practitioners that live right here that are still falling underneath rules of outdated supervision rules, that we can cut that out. There's a bill that's already in the House and the Senate. They just need to pass it and get that done. We need somebody that's going to go up there and do that, provide opportunity for people that live right here to have better opportunity to serve you and me right here in Eastern North Carolina. When I say work proud, we need to support our local businesses. Farmers, farming and agriculture produce $111 billion to our economy in Eastern North Carolina and across the state.
Wow.
We need to support our farmers. They're struggling right now. The prices that they're getting is the same prices that they were getting back in the 70s.
Wow.
But tractors that they bought in the 70s were $40,000. Now they're $250,000. The fertilizer input costs that they're having to deal with right now, back then was $200 a ton. Now it's $900 a ton.
Oh.
So their input cost has skyrocketed, but what they're getting for it is peanuts, so to speak.
So to speak.
We need to do better. We need to, and part of that problem is the monopolization that corporations are coming in and buying up family farms. They're cutting out and they're pushing out the family farmers. We need to work at protecting our family farmers so that they can continue to be able to feed us and have local farmers right here in the town, in our backyards, that you know, not a corporation that comes in and drives out our family farm. We need dependable transportation, and we need to support infrastructure and to grow infrastructure in Eastern North Carolina. The water plants, the sewer plants are all outdated and need to be updated so that we can have industry here in Eastern North Carolina. Folks, the Trump administration, I don't know if you've seen, has indicated that they're bringing and announced that there's $8 trillion worth of investments coming into the U.S. There's no reason why we can't have some of that piece of pie in Eastern North Carolina. It doesn't have to go west of 95. It doesn't have to go in the Research Triangle Park. Now, I'm not trying to make Eastern North Carolina Raleigh. I'm not trying to do that, because we love the way we are in Eastern North Carolina. But we need to have jobs for our kids or grandkids to have somewhere to go to work. We need that in Eastern North Carolina. And it needs to be more than just a service industry job where we go to McDonald's and we work till we're 35 or 40 years old. We need something that at the end of the week, you're gonna have money left over after you pay your grocery bill, and after you pay your light bill, and after you pay for your rent or your housing, that you have some money left over that you can carry your kids out to eat, that you can go to the local mom and pop store and buy some goods and services, that you can go and enjoy the benefits of living in eastern North Carolina, the Albemarle Sound. You can carry your kids out on the afternoon boat ride, or go fishing, or go to some of our historic sites. And that's what I mean by being able to play free in eastern North Carolina. When you put all those things together, folks, that you can live well, that you can work proud, that you can play free, that's my promise to Eastern NC. That's what I want to do. Now, I need your help to be able to do that. Each one of you in here know at least 10 people. I need you to go out tonight and say, hey, have you heard of this guy, John Spruill? He is on fire for Eastern North Carolina. He really wants to help us. And you notice I'm not saying me or I. This is a we thing, folks. It is a we thing. We have to do this. It's not a, are we gonna do this? It is a, we have to do this. We have to have somebody that's gonna go to Raleigh, that's gonna be an advocate for us, that's gonna work for us, that's gonna work for we. And I'm asking you to help me to be able to do that. I wanna go to Raleigh to help us, to help Eastern North Carolina. I need your help. I need you to go out and spread the word. I need your support, because it is expensive running a campaign. And I need you to volunteer, if you would. Put out signs, to help out, to make phone calls, anything of that nature that you will be willing to do. I will greatly appreciate it. I really appreciate your time, and I think we're gonna have some questions.
Q&A, yeah. So they both talk louder than I do as well. So I'm gonna come back with the microphone so you can ask the questions from wherever. And if you want to address to either one of them or both, then we'll let them respond, all right? So let me come back, Sheila.
So both candidates mentioned healthcare, and I have experienced the same thing that you mentioned. What is it about Eastern North Carolina that doctors come here, work for a little bit, and disappear?
There's a lot of reasons, there's a variety of reasons, but part of it is the provider model. There's increased pressure. I served on the Dare County Medical Task Force to try to remedy some of those problems. Part of what we're told is that there's a model for profit, that the bigger medical care providing institutions who are trying to buy up and control that want to have a certain pro forma paradigm for treatment, and it's a time to the second, to the minute. You have this amount of time. It's a checklist. It's a pro forma. In addition, to bring in new facilities, you have to deal with something that the legislature has dealt with for several times, but they've never been able to get a handle or get a resolution one way or the other, and that's certificates of need. You have to, it's somewhat peculiar to North Carolina that you can't just bring in a medical provider or a facility. It has to be an evaluation of certificates of need. The other thing, as John talked to you about, there has been some improvement that we haven't seen the effects of it yet, because some of that legislation is just passed, and it'll probably have to be tweaked again. But it deals with allowing other people to provide services, such as increasing the people who can provide those services instead of just the doctors. And of course, there's the pay model. Some people are upset with the pay model. John?
Yes. So I look at Little Washington County, and we've got Washington County Hospital, right? and they're struggling. They filed for bankruptcy, and they've just come out of bankruptcy, and they reorganized, but they're trying to provide a service for a little small county such as ours. And it's when you base the amount of insured payers that are paying that actually are paying their money, paying their bills, versus the number of people that are going there and just showing up, they don't have insurance at all. And it takes a big chunk out of these hospitals to be able to provide that service. So we need to work on having that opportunity for those people that are uninsured to be able to have insurance. If they have a job, they're gonna have insurance, they'll be able to afford it. We need to start there, I think. Also, being able to provide, our nurse practitioners to be able to practice cheaper. Some of them are having to pay thousands of dollars to a doctor that they don't even know to be able to practice medicine. I don't know about y'all, but I see a nurse practitioner and she is awesome. I mean, and some people have the argument, well, she's not a doctor and she don't know how to treat you. Well, you're right. She knows how to refer me to the specialist to go to. You know, we don't need big high paid doctors when you have a sniffle, or when you have high cholesterol, or when you need a regular checkup. So we need to work at getting health providers in here that have a lower income, not necessarily have to be paid a lot of money. Those doctors, they see it being attractive to go to the big city because they're gonna get a bigger paycheck. I understand that. We need to provide better here for us in Eastern North Carolina.
Thank you, John. My daughter-in-law is a nurse practitioner and does have to follow those rules. It's kind of disgusting. But my question for you is going to go another direction. It's for both of you. Both the House and the delegates, House of Delegates and the Senate, both had bills in front of them this year about restricting HOAs even further than what they have done before. And I know it passed in one of the houses, I don't remember which, did not pass in the other house, so it's not put forward yet. But what are your feelings on the HOAs? Just to give you a little background though, I was the past president, and there's several past presidents of the HOA here in the audience.
I'm vaguely familiar with that deal. I remember reading some parts of it, and based off of my memory on that, I think you have some HOAs that are being really over-restricted for people that live in their community, to an nth degree, so to speak. I see where that can be very unfair to particular individuals, but I also see when you signed up to move in that area, you signed an agreement, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you agreed to all those restrictions that they put on you in there. So if you don't want to be part of an HOA, then don't sign up to go in that. You know it's right there.
I'm familiar with the bill. It hasn't passed. It's gonna come back though.
Yes, it will.
But I served as president of my homeowners association, and I used to represent lots of homeowners associations. I feel like that the legislation is about right to allow the people to do, not pending legislation, but what's all, the law we already have on our books. We have a whole, it covers just about everything that's needed. Now, the one thing that's unique to North Carolina that won't be fixed, North Carolina has a North Carolina Supreme Court case that's different than any other jurisdiction that says that a majority cannot legislate to the detriment of the minority, especially if it deals with money, and it has to be determined reasonable by a court. And that's what our North Carolina Supreme Court has held. Now, primarily where that comes into play is when you're raising duties. So somebody can challenge that in court.
How about other ones? Okay, any others? I always have a couple, so. One of the discussions we had probably 2 or 3 years ago had to do around our farmers, and both of you mentioned our farmers. I read the other day that North Carolina is either second or third in the country in terms of international individuals like the Chinese buying up our farms, particularly those near military bases. What do you think is being done, and what can we do to support our farmers so that property stays here at home?
You know, the Farm Bill did not pass. There was a provision in the Farm Bill this year. One of the policy recommendations was to deal with that issue. But how many of you know, for the first time in modern times, North Carolina didn't pass a Farm Bill this year. We don't have a budget. That's why you need to send John and I to the legislature.
So in North Carolina, there's 44,000 acres that are owned by foreign entities. And there's 5,000 acres right here in eastern North Carolina that's owned by the Chinese government. We need to cut that out. Now, I'm not talking about cutting out foreign investment in eastern North Carolina. We welcome it. If somebody wants to come invest money in eastern North Carolina, great. But from adversarial governments that is death to America, so to speak, from the Chinese, we don't need that. There is a bill that's been introduced, and I'm not sure where it's at right now, and I think it's passed one of either the Senate or the House, vice versa, that limits how close land can be bought in regards to a military base. And one of them, and I think it's the House bill that goes even further and says that there can be no adversarial government buying property in North Carolina at all. And I think it's the vice versa with the other one. One's like 75 miles and the one's, but anyway, we need to push that stuff forward. We don't need adversarial governments right here in owning land close to us in eastern North Carolina. Another thing that we can also do to help our farmers is that, and I spoke to a farmer down in Terrell County, and he was telling me this. He said, we have these corporations that are buying up vast amounts of family farms, and that if you know there's a provision within your counties. If you're a farmer, you can file for where you don't have to pay so much property taxes on your farm. It gives your farmers a little bit of break. We ought not to offer that to corporations that are coming in buying up family farms just for profit. They're here for profit. They should pay their full property tax value. They should not be given that credit. And that'll help us out as counties to be able to raise revenues, and it'll help out family farms from not being snatched up so fast.
Just gonna say, Terrell County, one of the counties in that would be in my district, talks about 55% of the land is not subject to ad valorem tax, which is a problem. They can't even buy fire trucks.
Can you talk a little bit too about the solar farms and the wind farms going in and how much property they are taking up and the taxation of those?
So in Washington County, there was just put in a solar farm that just went on grid about 2 years ago, and it took up farmland that I used to farm when my grandfather, when we were growing up, he was a farmer, and we actually farmed some of the land that is now under solar farm. Now we rented that land, but when you have these solar farms that come in and they offer this unrealistic amount of money just to purchase it, to put that in, and the reason they can afford to do it is because they get an 80% reduction on their property and personal property tax.
Jeez.
That same company is kind of humorous a little bit. In Washington County, and I'm sure it's the same way in other counties, you have a deadline that you have to file for that by. They missed that deadline. Well, they come on their knees begging for us commissioners to give them a break. Well, if I gave them a break, then I got to give everybody and their brother a break too. That break was over $1 million that they had to pay us. And they fought tooth and nail, but they ended up having to pay us, or either they were getting ready to, Washington County was getting ready to go into solar business. But, we also have a 4,400 acre solar farm that's getting ready to be, start into construction. And it takes up farmland, and it takes up, trees that are being grown, all to go in the solar field. And it's because of that subsidy that they're getting. And there was, I'm sure, some deal that was made in Raleigh back however many years ago that gave them that deal. But that's something that I think, and I know that the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners lobbied heavily for that this year to try and get that changed. If not completely, at least a little bit, to help out these counties that are struggling in eastern North Carolina to be able to raise that tax on that property that's being improved.
Well, and to add to that, the subsidy is was coming down from Washington. It was a kind of a pass-through, but that's changed now. Also, those contracts, a lot of those I've had 3 of those cases, but the contracts routinely provide that it's over if the subsidy's over. So it shows you that the people who are doing that don't believe in the product themselves. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Can the land be reclaimed once a solar farm or a wind farm is shut down?
Yes, it will be, but it's more than likely if they fold, but, and it's under lease, but the problem is, it depends on what condition it's in and what stage it's in. We don't know enough about it. There is a contamination issue depending on what stage of that process you're in.
Yeah, I think by reclaimable, you meant farmable.
Yes.
Right, not just
Because
can you get it back.
I understand the wind farms have to use a tremendous amount of cement to support the whole thing, the top of the stanchion, the blades, everything. And I'm not sure that could ever be used again. I'm not sure, I don't know about the solar farms. I do know about the wind farms, the amount of cement needed to keep those things standing.
So when they come in with a solar farm, they come in there with it, because I'm in the contracting business, so I've seen it and helped do it, because we got paid to do it. You take the topsoil in the dirt and you push it off into the low spots, and what you're left with is ground that's, you have rich, nice ground for growing peanuts and corn and whatever, and now you got clay or whatever was underneath that. They're not so much worried about grass growing, because they don't want that to grow up so high that it blocks the solar panels, and they've got to keep it mowed. So to answer your question, yes, it could be reclaimed, but it's gonna cost some money to be able to shift that topsoil back where it was, to be able to grow crops on it again.
Thank you.
Jerry, keep the hat.
I wore this because last night somebody chastised me because they said you didn't have your lucky hat on.
That's not it. Carolina's changed. A lot of misplaced Yankees down here, I think more than any. And we look at you and we say, that just looks right. So it gives you good personality, keep it. My question, I don't know how it's going to come out, is about the elephant in the room, and it's the recent election in Virginia and in New York, and the effect that the personality, President Trump's personality, has on local elections, for good, for bad, or for worse. How do you fear that's going to affect you, or how do you approach that when it shouldn't affect you? But we can't ignore it. It happened in Virginia and New York.
Yeah. And
I
Joseph.
know in my case, I'm running for John Spruill for eastern North Carolina.
All right.
That's what I'm focusing on, is us, we. I'm not focusing on what's happening, what Trump's doing, what Trump's saying. I know what we need here in eastern North Carolina, and I think y'all know what we need here too. We need somebody that's gonna go to Raleigh and that's gonna work for us, and that's what I intended.
Good for you.
And I was gonna tell you, part of the reason I'm running is that at first it was reluctantly. People started coming to me several months ago, even before I had retired, and I kept saying no. And then a series of events happened. And it's not about the person. You have justices that homes were attacked, vandalized. You've got 5 members of administration that are living on military bases. You've got 2 attempts on the president's life, and you had an intended murder of Justice Kavanaugh and maybe other justices, and then they assassinated Charlie Kirk, which I believe was an attempt to silence not just a person, but a voice. So I think called back to the biblical verse in Esther, when she was called by her uncle or her cousin, the prophet, and told, when there was a plan hatched to murder her people by a member of the cabinet of the king, that she should go work for them and lobby for them, even though it might cost her life. And she was reluctant to do so, but he reminded her, this is probably the reason you were put in this place. And it's about the right time and right place. And if you remain silent at a time like this, your people will perish. So I think it's a time like this.
So yeah, it's hard to follow the question with a question after that. But another one for you in particular, you mentioned a little bit earlier about crime and immigration. On the plantation, we are very fortunate because we are in a gated community and we don't have much of a crime problem out here. What's that? Well, yeah. So what's your take on crime in our district and immigration? Knowing that out at the Outer Banks, we do have a problem with both drugs and human trafficking and various other issues.
Well, we have a problem with drugs. I cover these 7 counties, including Perquimans. We have a problem with drugs and opioid addiction in all of those. And I started and was dealing with the opioid court, the first and only in our district at the time, only one in eastern North Carolina of that nature, without limitation. It's something like bailing a leaky skiff, but it does work. The opioid addiction is not just about people being lethargic or high on drugs. It destroys families. It's larceny, it's other things that leads to everything. And it's not just one county, it's everywhere. Crime is generally good in this district. We don't have a lot of crime in this district. There are certain places that have gang murders, more in Pasquotank. You have a little bit in Chowan, but you have a drug epidemic everywhere. And you know, the problem with the illegal alien, and some people take issue with that. I saw Chicago mayor did, and I went back and looked at the statute. It's not something I regularly did with it. That language comes from the U.S. Code, 8 U.S.C. 1325. But the problem is we don't know who's here. And there are commissions of crimes, and sometimes we don't even know about it if it's within the same community.
John?
When you talk about the illegal aliens, I'll tell you a story. There's a young woman from Mexico that runs the Mexican restaurant in Plymouth. And I've been in her restaurant, and I've seen people come in there and say, I don't have any money. can you help me out? And I've seen her give food away to people. She has a caring heart. And she reached out to me, she said, John, she said, I'm trying to get right. I maybe didn't come here the right way, but I want to get right. I want to do the right thing. And she asked me would I write her a letter, you know, in support of her. And so I wrote a letter and said, hey, this lady has been here, she's running a restaurant, she's serving the community, she's feeding the homeless, you know, and the people that are in need. I see somebody like that, and it's hard to fight against them, to send them back, you know, from where they came from. People that came across the border with ill intention, to come here to harm us, to come here to bring fentanyl to our kids and our grandkids, I got no use for those people. They need to be picked up, they need to be sent back. There's no doubt in my mind. People that are here, that are trying to make themselves better, to try and make a better life, I can't hardly fight against them. That's a hard subject to broach, and I know a lot of people have different opinions on that. And we can continue to have that debate and figure out what is the best thing to do. As far as law enforcement, I want to work towards supporting our local law enforcement officers and make sure they have those resources that they need to keep us safe on the streets. The drug epidemic here is fueling a lot of the violence that we see in Plymouth, in Washington County, and I know over in Elizabeth City, you see where people are getting shot, or there's violent crimes that are going on. We need to work on that, and I think the key to that is providing the jobs to get these people off the street and get them to go to work. And I think it will limit some of the crime and some of the drug use that's going on. Because when you're in a down spot, they're trying to lift themselves up, and a lot of times they turn to the drug to do that. And we need to educate them and get them out of that doldrum.
Tom, thank you.
That's one, okay. First of all, thank you all for coming and talking to us. I think it's very enlightening. We need to do more of that. Thank you for putting this together. My question goes to both of you, and it's in regard to FEMA. Both of you talked about that. The current administration had said something about we're going to do away with FEMA and we're going to push that responsibility down to the state. Yeah, given where we live and where you live on the coast, what is North Carolina doing to be able to prepare for that eventuality? Maybe it's gone away, but it was a big issue for a while, and I don't know where it is and whether it's truly going to be pushed down to the state and how the state's going to handle that. If you could comment on that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm not exactly sure where that is at the state level. I don't think it's upon us yet. There is a structure, there's a priority and a hierarchy for dealing with those same things that FEMA does. But I will have to do some more research and find out where that is and get back with you in terms of the planning with the governor's office. And I'm not aware of any legislation that's been proposed or pending about that.
I know that thank goodness the state of North Carolina had put aside and had a rainy day fund to be able to send money immediately to the western part of the state.
Right.
When that hurricane went through and they had all the flooding out there. And it's my understanding they're trying to rebuild that rainy day fund because we're going to have another hurricane and it's going to hit us out here. And we're going to need that same amount of help here. I do think that FEMA is slow to respond. I mean, I look at, we applied for a FEMA grant with the fire department. And we applied for that grant in 24, way back, and it took them all the way till this year to award that grant. That's how long it took. Now, some of that had to do with the new administration coming in and the cuts that they were doing and making sure a lot of the money wasn't going to DEI type stuff, and I understand that. But we can do better. The federal government can do better, and I think it can do better by sending the money to us. We know how to spend it here in Eastern North Carolina. You know, when it's spent locally, we know how to do that a lot better than the federal government, that they don't have anybody here to be able to know what our needs are in Eastern North Carolina.
John, if you have another question, maybe first. So they will both be here. Do you have a quick one? Yeah, all right.
You've talked about the need to have jobs, and you talk about infrastructure. What positive action can you take to get business into Eastern North Carolina? It seems that every time you hear about something, on new plants moving in and so forth, it's never here. And I know your predecessor, Bob Steinberg, I know he tried to work on some stuff, but it's all well and good to say we need the infrastructure, but what positive steps can you guys take to really get some industry in here? We need some factories, we need some AI, whatever.
The Tidewater area is kind of reached their limit. They're looking for somewhere to go. So I think John, maybe you've already looked at that too, and I'm looking at it with a group of people. These areas, the finger counties, are poised for use for the rail and the ports that would bring some light industry and processing, and which translates to good jobs, which translates to, yeah, if you get that grant to pave your road or pave or buy a fire truck in Terrell County, that's a one-time thing, but the jobs is necessary to sustain that. And ports and the rail's been untapped. It's not been looked at for a long time in the right way. And that's the way that you can attract some light industry and maybe processing and good jobs.
I'll give you a real quick example of what we did in Washington County. We've been 10, 15 years without an economic development person, somebody that's going out and working for Washington County. We can do the same thing on a larger basis. We hired an economic development person, a full-time staffer. We also developed an economic development council of business people and government people. We put them all together in the same room. We're brainstorming about what we can do to grow Washington County, and we can expand that to Eastern North Carolina. We can also be able to provide the funds to develop mega sites or sites that it will be attractive for industries to move. Is a ready site. It's ready for them to move on. It's got the water on it, it's got the sewer on it, it's got the natural gas, it's got the internet. If we have those things in ready-made sites that's permitted and ready to go for a factory to move in here, we're gonna be able to get them in here. We're gonna be able to move them, but it's just a matter of, do we have the wherewithal to be able to do that? And I think we do. And it's just a matter of putting it together and having somebody that's gonna go champion for it.
And I would like to say that our county commissioners in Clemens County are doing that. We have an industrial section that is doing exactly what you're saying. We built that canal in there to allow more port space. We have 2 industries that are coming in there now. And I feel that we're moving in the right direction. We have hired, starting in January, an economic developer who will be working with us to continue to develop that area.
What's the field of dreams saying? If you build it, then come.
They will come. Amen.
All right. Thank you guys both for